Okay, so I think once again, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming to this interview. The objective of this interview was just to teach the communities around us about the dangers around phishing or business email compromise. We've seen with COVID-19 around now that a lot of people are getting emails around this, and a lot of people are susceptible to phishing attacks. So in order for us to just unpack that, I've put together a few cybersecurity experts here who can help us just really unflesh what is phishing, what is business email compromise, what can businesses, individuals with a small, large do about it. So as we go, I'm just going to introduce the panel, so to speak. So I guess everybody can just introduce themselves and then we can jump straight into it.
Okay, hi, I'm Alec Aronson, Regional Manager for SADC. Look after security products for Networks Unlimited.
Thanks, Alec.
Cool. I'm Stuart Hughes. I work for Sentinel and I head business development at the organization.
I see David is in incognito mode. So we're just going to jump with it, and I'm going to be directing most of my questions to Alec, because Alec, you've spent a long time in this industry. You deal with a lot of security products. You deal with a lot of customers. So you're actually sort of the core face of these challenges and can better help us understand this. So I'll start with, what exactly is phishing? What does it entail? What's happening there?
So phishing, in a summary point of view, is a process where your hacker, your infiltrator, or somebody that wants to do harm to an organization or individual sends an email out based on a different circumstance of phishing, because there's different variants. So it could be spear phishing, it could be just social compromise, it could be even a BEC as well, business compromised email. So there's different variants around it depending on the typical outcome that the hacker would like to bring across. So those are the circumstances around it. An email is sent to an individual or company as a whole, and waiting for someone to actually bite. That's why they call it phishing. So you're sending out basically a line out to maybe an individual or a company, and you're waiting for that bait to take effect. And somebody is now clicking on a link or attachment, hence the phishing term.
Oh, okay. So basically someone pretends to be someone they're not and asks you to do something. And under the illusion, okay. And what kind of examples have you seen of, like the financial costs or whatever? What happens if you do these things? If you are a victim?
So there's different type of financial costs that you can look at it. So one is reputational. Obviously, it's very difficult to come back from reputational damage, right? The other is your ransomware type of phishing scenarios, where obviously they hold your data to ransom until you pay with Bitcoin or some type of currency aspect around that to release the data from the encryption. That basically turns anything up from $2,000, $5,000, depending on the rate of exchange on that day. And like you said, it's not limited to enterprises, smaller customers as well, the SMBs that might not have that money to spend. Unfortunately, the risk is there, and the education needs to take part of that.
Okay. I mean, you just mentioned the Rand dollar exchange. As I was looking at this, so that Toyota was a victim of a phishing exercise where they lost $37 million. So at the current exchange rate, that's 762 million Rand. And tell us about, maybe I saw as well that a large majority of these attacks are around fake invoices. How would that work?
So especially with regards to, obviously the invoices come into effect. I mean, people are doing our work digitally. So there's no real validation. Companies have closed their doors and all working remotely. So the only interaction they have is the email aspect. So people are more prone to clicking on attachments and from emails sent to them, especially if it has some criteria to their business. I mean, it's a sort of enticement. So there's an aspect where either you owe someone money, meaning that you've got to action it quickly, or it could result in certain debt escalation, Or alternatively, it could be purchase orders. So you now have an enticement basically on something of reward. So you're thinking, oh, you're getting business while we're in the lockdown period. And those are the circumstances that hackers take around the emotional aspect that are geared towards human interaction.
So I like what you just picked on, because we had a recent experience with that, because they do create a sense of urgency, like you have to act quickly. And by acting quickly, you skip certain procedures in order to take advantage of whatever they're enticing you with. We actually recently had an RFP from the National Health Department requesting beds for the COVID-19 pandemic. So everything looked fine. The email address looked .org.za, looked legit. The documents, everything was as a tender should look like, until you actually Google that email address, follow up a little bit, and then all of a sudden you realize it's a phishing scam. So as somebody who's in the cybersecurity space, I know to do that. I know to look at the email address and to double check. I know how to follow up. If I compare it with phishing scams from maybe 5 years ago, which you could tell by looking at the email that it's fake. Nowadays, it looks like the real deal. It looked like the Department of Health. So what can businesses do? Like whether it's small business, large business, what can we do? Where do we start?
So the starting aspect is the educational part. We look at, like you said, you obviously IT professional, you can basically pick up these details behind it. But the lay person off the street obviously doesn't know that detail, not to know what they need to look for, the aliases behind the actual email address. So the educational part needs to start from that point of view. If they're receiving emails from people they don't know, that's one question that has been earmarked. Why are you opening emails from someone you don't know? Is there a way to validate that? Is there a phone number you can call? The detail within the email, does the context make sense to you? Is it relevant to your business or somebody else's business? If you're getting emails on health and you have nothing to do with that industry, it obviously is telling you one thing. That's sort of a phishing aspect. So logic and education is to take part with regards to this. The reason why we say so is that you might have all the security platforms that's out there to do your protection, but it's only doing so much because it's looking for signatures. It's not looking at context of that email where, as in from a human intervention, we can determine the difference between those aspects. Colors between logos. You can tell if a color is a different aspect from the logo that's supposed to be represented by a vendor or company or whatever it might be from them. So human intervention will always be there, I see, from a phishing aspect, as much as we going into technology and AI and things like that. So the first key is education. It doesn't matter if you're a small business or large enterprise. You need to educate your staff. You need to indicate you as an individual as well. Because what happens is, me as maybe a business owner or manager, I'm educating my staff around this aspect. They take that information that they've learned and pass it on to their colleagues or the individuals, or they utilize it at home as well. So the education has a ripple effect, but it's got to start. If you are still limiting the educational aspect, obviously we're going to hit those bottlenecks.
And in a practical sense, if I was to start today educating the team, what practical things do I do to let them know? Because also I'm not an expert, so where do I begin in educating them?
So you could look at CBT training modules, computer-based training modules that have different criteria based on the education you would like to bring across. If it's phishing to do with business compromise emails, you can do that. Spear phishing, or you can obviously get some content from the internet as well, advising type of phishing email, showing the hyperlinks and differences between that. Or you could also start looking at investing in a platform that does these phishing simulations, and obviously giving the educational awareness on top of that. Especially for businesses that are looking at building themselves. I think phishing is a very close to heart aspect of them, getting, how can I say, how can I say, defrauded, let's put it that way,
Yeah,
defrauded
yeah,
out of the little bit of rands that they're making or dollars that they're making and
yeah.
trying to make ends meet. And when they invest in this educational type of aspect, they're looking forward to making sure that they prevent these things in future as well. So as much as we know that phishing will evolve as technology evolves, the educational aspect will always be there. And it's up to individuals, companies, staff to make sure that they've educated around this.
That's good. And you mentioned a term there, spear phishing. How is that different from normal phishing? Or is it the same thing, two different things?
So spear phishing is a directed type of phishing. So it takes its concept exactly from the phishing aspect.
Yeah.
When you're targeting a specific fish within the water, it's spear phishing, using actual spear and you're targeting that type of fish. So it happens exactly in the email realm, whereas in they know they've done social engineering around the individual and they
Yeah.
know exactly what that individual does, if they're in finance, HR, whatever it might be, and knowing that that's their gateway into infiltration into an organization.
Oh, okay, so whereas normal phishing, it could be they send it out to anyone who could be susceptible to that. Spear phishing, they really profile you, target you, and send you emails directly to you and your job context.
Exactly that. Normal fishing is throwing a net in the water and hoping you're
Yeah,
catching as much fish as possible. Yes.
yeah. And you mentioned HR, finance, etc. Do I train everybody in the organization, or are there specific departments that are maybe more susceptible to these phishing attacks?
So everyone in an organization is just as susceptible, right?
Yeah,
Because phishing can be geared at different departments, different levels, different emotional aspects. So there's not one solution that fits all. You need to educate the users and the staff based on their type of departments and what are they most prone to. So an example is HR would be receiving CVs inundated for job applications or whatever it is. So how do they validate these things? Is there a way that they can basically check these details? Is there a safe precautionary aspect? Has the IT department made sure that there's certain precautionaries of a sandbox put in place before these emails?
yeah.
Like you say, finance, invoices, POs, those things are obviously prevalent to there. Do we recognize the extensions? Is your macros disabled? So there's many things that you can do to limit the mitigation around obviously being infiltrated around phishing.
Yeah.
It's based on those educational aspects and then also the IT department doing their thing as well.
So, I mean, based on what you said now, it seems like it's a massive intentional effort. What are the sort of costs and manpower required to train your team to do this user awareness campaigns? Because if a lot of small companies now, are just trying to get by, they're busy, they're this and that, and how much effort is this going to take for them to put together, like you mentioned, computer-based training, put together procedures to check that invoices are correct, etc. How much effort is that?
So if you're not looking at solution platform, you're looking at a lot of hours that needs to be put in on different divisions with
Yeah,
regards to different input. So costs basically vary because of obviously the different resource times that it's going to be affected on. So
yeah,
an example, if you're doing it in a manual process, you have somebody creating these documents, then printing out posters, and then maybe taking a scanned in image and then emailing to people as an announcement. So there are aspects that you can look at it, but I always look at trying to advise people in looking at the efficiency behind it. You want to make sure that your staff is not inundated with things around this type of manual process. So maybe
yeah,
look at the platform that does these simulations, right? That can give you the analytics back, so you're allowed to look through the analytical data and perceive where exactly your how can I say your weakest links are prone, which
yeah,
departments, what staff level are we looking at, where do I need to increase the educational aspect. So there are platforms out there that you can look at which are very, very good. You can
yeah.
look at the cost factor behind that is more or less about, let's say, 30 Rand a user per month, which
Okay.
is basically not that significant because if you're looking at your Microsoft Office 365, you're paying double that for the license per month.
Okay.
So if you take things into context, as well as the security and the educational part to it, I think investing in such a platform is very substantial for any business, whether it's small business or large enterprise.
Okay, so basically you can do it manually, but that's a lot of effort. There are platforms that can simplify it for you with maybe best practices embedded into them in terms of how you do it.
That's correct. Remember, from the point of you doing something manually, you still need to record all that effort. Whereas you have a platform, it makes it seamless through that point, and the information is readily available as well.
And do you need to buy this software, install it in your environment somewhere, or how would it work? Yeah.
So you have different type of options out there. You can obviously invest in the platform, have it deployed within your premises. We find that that is resource intensive. So normally you'd look at a SaaS application where the service is already available. So software as a service, you pay your subscription and you can utilize it basically at unlimited aspect until your subscription obviously dies out or you've stopped the subscription.
Also, pretty much like your Gmail or whatever is sitting there on the internet somewhere in the cloud, and it protects you.
That's correct. So you don't need to invest in your infrastructure. It's readily available. It's used as you obviously want to perceive. If you've got 5 users, 10 users, whether you're increasing tomorrow or decreasing staff, it's relevant to you. So it's very cost effective using your operational costs around it.
Yeah. And do you perhaps have some examples with you being in the field of customers who were challenged with phishing, and after they started a user awareness campaign, they saw a dramatic change in the way their users behave? How long will that process take? Because some of the IT users being targeted here aren't tech savvy. So do you need to be an IT boffin to understand this? And how long will it take you to become a more aware user?
So you don't need to be an IT boffin. The platform is very simplistic, right? It's a matter of seconds to set up a simulation, and from that point of view, have it obviously sent out or broadcasted to your staff or the individuals. And from that point of view, just waiting, depending on the duration of that campaign that you're running, simulation and what type of campaign, you get the analytics back immediately in real time. So you're able to diagnose and understand your threats within your own environment, never mind an external threat. Also, you can educate users on things that are up and coming. So an example is the COVID-19. There's so much fake news out there of COVID-19. I mean, for you to get an email, it's interesting to read up, yes, but how do you know what's fake from real? How do you know it's not part of a phishing email that's infected your machine just because you want to know the infection rate of your province or the death rate with regards to certain aspects? So by you wanting to dive down more into the information could be detrimental to yourself as well. So we'll also always encourage, use a platform, make it simple to you guys. Obviously make sure that the education is brought across as well. If you can get something that sums up in everything in once, it's perfect for you guys.
So what you're saying now is that if you have a platform that's available, it also looks at existing and new phishing scams and can alert you if you get something from that specific email that is from that scam.
That's correct. So if you look at every industry, like I said, they're different. If you look at the health industry, you have case studies on the health industry that indicates how they achieve their platform, with regards to phishing, especially they open to regulations like HIPAA, GDPR, and those type of things as well. And you'll find that through a platform like that, they're able to mitigate their risk and obviously understand where the risk is playing on in that regard. Also, maybe having the ability to report those phishing emails, real phishing emails, to the security or SOC team that has been missed by the security perimeter in the first place. So it helps give a secondary aspect to that.
Okay, now I got a better understanding now. Do you have something you can show us to visualize? Because a lot of the times when we talk, it's difficult for people to visualize what it might look like, or just to put it into context?
Okay, I'll show you a platform that we obviously use. I won't go through the whole procedure. I'll just show you a recent snapshot that I actually sent out to our organization in a few minutes. As you can see, we utilize it in our own platform. So it will just give you some insight into what to look for on a phishing platform.
Okay, great, great, great.
Just show my screen here quickly. Okay, so if you can see the screen now at the moment, we use a platform called PhishMe CoFence. And currently we're running an active scenario here. So I'll show you quickly something I set up in a few seconds. It will tell you some analytics behind it, but this is how the actual email looks. So because of obviously everybody working from home, I chose this template basically to show that if you're doing an example Teams file transfer, for an up and coming project, how do you validate that these things are correct or incorrect? How do you know it's legit within your company? So obviously, like we said, look at the email address it comes from. So it can be a Teams group, but the actual email address has nothing to relate to Teams itself or Microsoft, right? Obviously, the subject lines, if there's any giveaways from these aspects, you need to take cognizance of it, right? It might be that I'm just showing you a very quick, simple thing to click download the file, right? Obviously, by clicking and downloading the file, you're going to be opening up an educational platform on this particular platform. So it will tell you immediately that you've done something wrong. And you have to specify between the differences of what you need to actually look for, if it's an attachment, if there's some particular details behind it. So the educational aspect is direct to the type of phishing simulation that you've actually brought across to your users. So you can see it's indicating, were you expecting to receive a file or something to review? It will ask you to validate the email addresses. So it will take you through each and every process that a user would need to validate from a phishing email point of view. Okay.
This is, no, go ahead.
So you'll see basically on an aspect like this, if there's an attachment, it showed how you can validate the link. Whether it's on your phone as well, you can do exactly the same thing and see if that link's destination is characterized either to your organization or a vendor that's part of your organization, like Microsoft or whatever it might be. If it is not in that way, we always promote that you report that phishing email. Why? Because it could be a legitimate email, given those circumstances around it. So I'll show you a scenario. In this regard, if it was legitimate, it go back to your SOC team to give them a second chance to actually deal with that malicious threat. In the regard of a phishing simulation, I'll just show you quickly. There's the same email that we've got here. I don't know if you can still see my screen.
Yes, we can, but the tab hasn't changed. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yes. So this is exactly the same email. It was simulated to me as well. I just want to show you that here's my reporting button. And once I say report, it will come back with feedback saying, good job. The email was part of a phishing awareness education. Thank you for staying vigilant. So you encourage the users to actually report these phishing emails back into the system, irrespective if it's legit or it's a phishing campaign itself.
So what you're doing here is you're actually sending out these phishing emails to your own users to test them and make them aware. So you're training them in a safe environment. That's
correct. So remember also with the educational aspect, I'm now able to give you some more insight into obviously the analytical point of view. So if you take a look at my screen, from a summary point of view, from a dashboard point of view, I can tell you that we're running at the moment went to 67 users. 29 of them reported it. 9 of them were actually susceptible to that phishing email. So I can dive down deeper into these users, find out who's the repeat offenders, find out the reporting frequency of my organization. So all this starts giving me information based on the actuals of your own organization and where you are maybe falling flat from a security point of view and where to increase it. Is it a divisional thing? Is it a department thing? Is it an individual thing?
Mm.
This is the information that you need to actually progress and fight the phishing combat aspect.
And how long did it take you to set up all of this?
Under 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes. I would say 2 minutes if you know exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, okay. All right. So it's easy to set up and you can just add your users' emails in there and already start educating them by testing them actually.
That's correct. So you can do a test email to yourself as the actual administrator that's going to be doing phishing to see if it comes out exactly what you'd like to uh, uh, have the users perceive,
Yeah.
like a preview aspect. Or if you're happy with it, you just send out the content and see from that point of view. So not only that, if a regulational aspect is there on this particular platform, I can send out an announcement and basically able to see who of my users have actually read the regulation through. So
Okay.
the educational aspect can also be, I'm gonna say, recorded from that aspect as well. So now I've covered through this platform not only regulational issues, phishing issues, and the educational type of aspect all in one.
Okay. No, this has been very insightful. I don't know if Stuart, if you have anything to add on there, or but I think I have a better understanding of what phishing is and what I can do and how I can implement it. I mean, even if you have 5 people, you can implement this, correct?
That's correct. Remember, it's geared at everybody. Phishing has no limitation.
Yeah.
It can be you at home, obviously based on trying to do some type of email structure. And when
Yeah.
you receive that email, it's either ransomware or some type of phishing link. If you're not educated around it, you're susceptible to it.
All right. Stuart, David, any questions?
Oh, I wouldn't say I have any
Nothing from my
questions.
side.
I think it is a good tool just to start, at the beginning, educate your employees, bringing them aware to understand what threats are out there. And I think it's great that it can actually paint a picture on, who's taking the time to learn, what are the phishing attacks out there, what to look out for, maybe hold certain people accountable, because at the end of the day, one threat can affect your whole company. So it just needs a foot in the door. So you need to close as many doors as possible. But yeah, Alec, I think it's a great tool that you showed. I've learned a lot, and yeah, it was really cool.
So the aspects behind the tool, besides the resource aspect, is that you might get updates of known threats that are out there. So an example is if you know that the IMIT ransomware or a variant of that type of malware is out there, and how they're utilizing that particular tool to bring across from a phishing email point of view, it helps give you insight on how to prepare users as well. So I've already basically done a simulation based on the new template that I have, based on the new threat, and simulated it to my users so they know what to expect in the near future. So if a phishing attack goes global, worldwide, my users are already prepared for something around that.
That's good. That's good. So I guess to conclude the call, I would just like to summarize, and correct me if I'm wrong as I summarize. Phishing, all types of phishing, whether it's spear phishing or compromise of business emails, it attacks everyone, whether individuals, small business, large business, everyone is susceptible to this. And the key to handling these emails is through user awareness training, getting your users familiar with, because technology can only do so much, as you've mentioned. The technology cannot read the context of the email. It can maybe just understand some of the content, but not the context. So user awareness training and ongoing user awareness training, because the phishing scams evolve, they get better, and you have to consistently be training your users. Right? Okay. No, I think thanks for your time, Alec. This has been really insightful in terms of understanding phishing. And I hope that the people watching this have also learned something, and they have things that they can do right now. If you can send us some links to maybe some more information, some free tools that we can use, some place where users can start to really look at how to defend themselves against phishing attacks, and then we can add those to the bottom of the video at the end.
Sure. What I'll do is also I'll send you some numbers comparison so you can see an example would be something like SANS Institute has declared that 97% of people worldwide do not know how to identify phishing emails, which is scary. That means 3% out there can only identify phishing emails, and majority would be obviously the IT educated guys. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll chat to you next time when we have another issue. So I'm just going to